spot now by making you sing a song or tell a joke.
All right, do a dance.
Right, Joel, we're going to sit back for a moment. And what I'm going to do just is explain a little bit of the rules of the game, Joel, in here. We have a camera pointing at us down there, because the other cities and other participants online have the option of watching this session, which is obviously recorded as well. So, Joel, what I thought we would do in this, so now the Federation briefs for today, albeit a little more tomorrow, are over. But what we've been doing, I think, is exposing some themes. So I thought perhaps between you and I, we can sort of, open up a discussion with the people that are here. People obviously out at meetings and coming in and out. So I think what I'm going to ask you all to do, if you don't mind, very, very briefly, and Joel, this will help you because I know you've been dashing in and out of meetings. Would you mind if we start with our friend from Qatar, saying, what do you think you have learned? And would you mind if I go around each of you? Just, are there any pull-out points of little nuggets that you think that you might just go, actually, I never realised this, or that was quite interesting. So can we take a Qatari view first? And then I think, Joel, that will give you something to feed off from what actually people have actually heard, and we'll have just a bit of a discussion. I don't think we need to keep people a huge amount of time. I think they'll probably need a cup of coffee. But what's the view from Qatar, because you've loyally sat through virtually every session? Oh, actually, I'm sorry. I have to give you a microphone. That wasn't very clever. Right, hang on a second. Yeah, no, just what you feel you might have learned that you might want to share, because obviously other people have been listening online.
Yeah, just to give a summary of my impressions, I think some of the sessions with Federation were very insightful. I've got to learn some sports which were maybe not on my radar. Very interesting also to see in which direction sports in general is moving to. You have a lot of sustainability components, a lot of let's say attracting youth people. No? And this is something we are looking also to utilize in Qatar, the opportunity to bring young people, give them the opportunity also to make themselves a picture about the country and the real situation, to enjoy, to mix cultures and break some boundaries. So I could see that this is also one part of it, the legacy part. I really, really like to see in a lot of the sessions that it's not just about hosting an event, but also how can you do the grassroots, how can you build something, not infrastructure, but something educational-wise towards an active, sporty lifestyle to attract youth. It was really, really interesting to see.
Okay, right. Can we move the microphone forward?
I haven't attended all the sessions.
Okay.
So.
No. Yeah.
Okay. I've been introduced to a lot of federations, so I guess my takeaway is that I've just learned about all the extra opportunities that are out there. That are more feasible to be hosting at the destination that I represent than I originally thought. Like World Archery, for example, it could be hosted in a very cool way in the city center, like it was in Berlin or some of the other cities that we were watching. So I've just seen that there's more opportunities in our region with creative events than I initially thought. So I guess that's one of my takeaways, but there's many that I can't just think of everything now. But
Okay, great. I'd like to come back to that.
Yeah, for me, it was a really good format. I must say thank you, Dennis and the team, for organizing this, because we, I attended lot of different conferences and events within this industry. And this is the first time we got on this format, so thank you. And for me, was this briefings was about to see the trends and how they approach the legacy part. But also, I'm not here to buy events. I'm here to see if the events align with my city strategy, and could this be an event that we can host in Bergen. So. Very good. Thank you so much for this host briefings. Yeah.
Well, just a brief couple of comments, and John, I'm going to hand over to you because you've obviously been speaking to the Feds mostly outside the rooms, and you have your own views about. And I think what we're trying to share is the learning. You know, what are the headlines here? I am encouraged by your comments because. I think that you and I have talked before about the iceberg above the water below, and actually one of the objectives that we did have was exactly what you said, which was, wow, it's opened my eyes to my language now, not yours. Opened my eyes to the fact there are things that we could host that I didn't think that we could do before, and I think this is what we've talked about. You know, telling me that you want to host the FIFA Football World Cup in the next 8 years or whatever it is. You know, or 12 years, you know, in most cases, it's just not a starter. I think the other thing that I hope has happened outside the room with your colleagues or whatever is, and I was talking to some of the federations over lunch, that, you know, the small things that we hope have got right is actually the federations really asking to speak to the cities. Now, that is a huge coup. I mean, you know, because remember, with respect, cities can spend hundreds of thousands, if not tens of millions, trying to engage with these guys. And the fact that they actually are saying, I think that's why you've been so busy, you know, we want to speak to you. So that's good. And what we will do is, just in this forum, because we have never done this before. This is the 5th Federation Summit, but we've never had these very bespoke. Tomorrow, hopefully you are around, there's another hurricane coming your way tomorrow. Where there's more federations briefing you again. So so Joel, as you've sort of been dashing around between meetings, I'm going to hand the microphone to you. What do you think you've learned that you can share with the online folks as well as folks in the room?
Thanks, Dennis. Firstly, I agree with a colleague from Berlin that. You know, thank you for putting this together, because I think what you've managed to do is short-circuit a conversation that used to take months of emails and meetings, and so to try and create an environment where you can have that direct line is a great platform. I think there's all learnings we can take out of this. I'm sure you had a sleepless night thinking, how do we improve this? But I definitely think we're onto something. I think another bit of learning, talking to other host cities and other federations, is that the world is very different now than it was 3 years ago. And cities like Birmingham, in my case, West Midlands and the region, have got different reasons for investing in major events now than they had before the COVID pandemic. Whether that's to bring communities together, whether that's to fill stadiums once more, whether that's to get our businesses moving, whether that is to connect, you know, different parts of the communities and cities. So we're looking at a whole list of different reasons to invest. The other reflection I had last night, if you've read the newspapers, we are in a global pandemic, a global economic crisis. There aren't many cities sat on big cheques to hand over to federations for millions of pounds. So we're having to be more creative and inventive in the sports we look at and in the impact that they can have. That isn't just about eyeballs and commercial value and ticket sales. It's actually about social impact. It's about communities. It's about, you know, profile of cities and about, you know, getting people back into our city centres and our stadiums. So I think there's a whole different, and a shout out to my colleague Ian Edmondson, who's done a lot of work with the Association of Summer Olympic Federations and indeed in, the Host Cities Association. I think host cities should be starting to work together to look at a common set of metrics, a common set of measures that we can map against our own corporate priorities. Each city has got their own priorities or outcomes that they're trying to achieve from major events, whether that's driving footfall or getting venues full. So, yeah, sorry, that's a bit of a ramble, but I think what I'm trying to say is that I think it feels like I used to think I was the only one thinking this way, and it's pretty clear to me that there's a lot of people thinking the same way, and that we could all actually help each other by sharing and comparing notes a bit more, and coming up with the measures that we think are important to each other. So.
Can I just make a comment on that?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for addressing this. It's so important. And just before the pandemic, I was involved in the International Association of Event Hosts, and we were actually talking about that. We all cities come together and we talk about. We held the UCI World Championship back in 2017, and I talked to Innsbruck, which having that same event in 2018, and we looked at the numbers that UCI gave us. That was the numbers that didn't, was a real, 300 million TV viewers. Come on, it's maybe 20,000, but okay. The thing is that so we need those cities to come together and talk together, and also maybe give some valuable information to the next city, to the next host, right?
Yeah, and I think, without in any way wishing to embarrass anybody, no, I mean, following up on your comment, for those that were in the room, as you may have noticed, there was a challenge on what are those numbers, what evidence have you got? Do you remember? It was, if I'm honest, it was a bit of an uncomfortable conversation. Would we all agree? And the person, responding was doing the best they can to hold the party line. But it was bordering on being a little uncomfortable.
So I've got a couple more observations as well to add. I think the sporting landscape has changed, and the way people look at sport and view sport has changed. So it's no longer about filling stadiums. We saw in the pandemic that people viewing content online, on handheld devices, sport is much more accessible. And therefore, sports that Dennis talked about, the iceberg, I see sport like an iceberg. You can only see the 10% above the water: football, cricket, hockey, rugby, in the UK's case. But most of the really exciting and interesting sports, climbing, skateboard, BMX, mixed martial arts, they're the really exciting sports that are starting to be much more attractive to cities like ours. And therefore, it's become a bit more of a buyer's market. And what I've heard from some of the federations, they're being much more realistic about the type of support they want from cities. They're not asking for big subvention or big hosting fees. They just want help to make the event popular and visible. And that's what we do. That's what cities like Birmingham and West Midlands are kind of good at. So I would say that's the first thing. And just a last observation that I'd flip to the audience is, we shouldn't forget that there are a lot of commercial operators in the sports space who've been doing it for years and who've been doing it very successfully and doing it brilliantly. Football clubs, rugby clubs, cricket clubs, athletics clubs, professional sport I'm talking about. Yeah, we tend to kind of obsess over federations, amateur sport and Olympics. And actually, the more we learn from the people who commercialise sport and make things like BMX or skateboarding commercially viable, rather than rely on a public purse that's forever having more demands placed on it, then I think we should learn more from the commercial sector, but also more from the commercial people who are at this conference as well. There are experts here in ticket sales and marketing and promotion, over the top broadcast. And I think what we've not done enough, if I may say, is cross-fertilise some of those ideas with cities, federations, and some of the commercial operators who kind of pay their bills by being good at what they do.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a bit of another conversation for you.
Yeah, and typically that used to be the format. And as I say, this year, as you swing the needle around, we try to go down a very rifle shooting type shot. But no, good observation. And I think that and actually now, otherwise Tupo will be killing me. We are due to move back to the auditorium. I think actually your reflective comments are right. We're not over yet. We shouldn't forget that. We've got a pretty action-packed morning tomorrow, probably nursing a fairly serious hangover, I would think. But the point of the story is this reflection, which we've just done briefly, which is why we thought it was important to do it today when people are a little fresher. That process needs to go on. I've got some ideas I want to share with you, but it will be after the event is over, because I think, if I may steal your quote, we would like to think we're on to something, albeit it could be refined and adapted and changed and evolved, and we would absolutely welcome your feedback in doing that. So folks, let me just tell you what's happening. We're going to walk out of here. We're going to go into the auditorium. We have 2 sessions, and then we're just going to explain what's happened tonight and go straight upstairs for the drinks, and straight from the drinks into the dinner, which is, and I think there's 185 of us tonight at dinner. So if you've got 185 business cards, please make sure that you come back with empty pockets, or not. Okay, thanks very much, Joel, for joining us. I know we were running a little bit late at the beginning, but there you go. We've had a brief chat, so thank you very much indeed. That brings this session to an end for our online community, and we'll speak to you later on. Thanks, Joel.